Welcome back to the channel Rare Coins All World, coin enthusiasts. Today, we're diving into a coin that might seem like just another penny at first glance, but don't be fooled, this is a gem you definitely don't want to overlook. The 1978 Lincoln Penny, a coin that could be hiding in your collection, and if you find it in the right condition, it could be worth far more than you ever imagined. So why should you be paying attention to the 1978 Lincoln Penny? Well, the answer lies in the combination of rarity, minting errors, and a bit of good old-fashioned luck. The 1978 penny is part of the well-known Lincoln Memorial Series, which ran from 1959 to 2008. However, there are certain aspects of the 1978 penny that make it stand out, especially when compared to other years in the series. To begin with, the 1978 penny wasn't as widely produced as other pennies from the late 70s, and that alone makes it an interesting coin to look out for. The mint marks on these coins are essential, as they reveal which mint produced them: Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. While the Philadelphia mint produced the majority of the pennies that year, it's the Denver and San Francisco mint marks that attract the most attention from collectors. Pennies from these mints are far rarer than their Philadelphia counterparts, which is why they often fetch higher prices. Now, let's talk about condition. As with most collectible coins, the 1978 penny's value is heavily dependent on its condition. Most pennies from this year have seen heavy circulation, and that wear and tear can seriously reduce their value. A typical 1978 Lincoln penny found in your pocket change is likely to be well worn with visible scratches, dings, or fading. But finding one in mint or near mint condition, with sharp details, a glossy finish, and no visible signs of wear, can raise its value significantly. The higher the condition, the higher the value, and you'll see why that makes this coin particularly intriguing to collectors. But here's where it gets exciting: errors. Minting errors can turn an ordinary penny into a collector's dream. Minting errors are exactly what they sound like: mistakes made during the minting process that result in an unusual or unique coin. And the 1978 Lincoln penny is no stranger to these errors. One of the most sought-after types of errors for this penny is the double die error. This occurs when the design on the coin is struck twice, causing parts of the design to appear doubled. The most common places to see this doubling are in the date and the inscriptions, like "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." If you come across a 1978 penny with noticeable doubling, you've struck gold. This error can significantly increase its value. Another error to look out for is the off-center strike. When a coin is struck off-center during production, part of the design is missing or distorted. These errors are highly collectible because they are so unique, and finding a 1978 penny with an off-center strike is a rare treat for any coin enthusiast. Don't forget about repunched mint marks. Sometimes, the mint mark, like the D for Denver, is struck multiple times, causing it to appear blurry or doubled. This is another error that collectors actively search for, as it makes the coin much more interesting and valuable. So, how much could your 1978 Lincoln penny really be worth? Well, the value largely depends on its condition and any errors it might have. A 1978 penny in uncirculated condition could fetch a few $100s, but if your coin has a minting error, the price could rise drastically. One of the most exciting finds would be a 1978 penny with an error like double die or off-center strike. Such a coin could be worth much more than just a couple of $100. Now, here comes the part you've been waiting for: the big reveal. If you find a 1978 Lincoln penny with one of those coveted minting errors, or if you've managed to track down a near-perfect example with a rare mint mark in excellent condition, you could be looking at a coin that's worth $40,000. Yes, you heard that right, $40,000 for a single penny. It's important to note that not every 1978 penny will fetch this incredible amount, but for the lucky few who come across a particularly rare one, it's an amazing discovery. So, if you have a 1978 penny in your collection, it's definitely worth giving it a closer look. Check for those minting errors, check the condition, and see if you might have a hidden treasure in your hands. That's all for today's video, folks. I hope this has sparked your curiosity and maybe even inspired you to dig through your collection for a 1978 Lincoln penny. Remember, collecting coins is all about learning, discovering, and sometimes getting lucky with a find that could be worth a small fortune. Today we're about to uncover the secrets of a coin that might just be hiding in plain sight, the 1968 Lincoln penny. Now, at first glance, this may seem like just another ordinary penny from the late 60s, but trust me, there's much more than meets the eye with this coin. If you're a true collector, you'll want to hear what we have to say about the 1968 penny and its potential to be worth a small fortune. Let's start by talking about the 1968 Lincoln penny's place in history. In the 1960s, the U.S. was in the midst of tremendous change, both socially and politically. The year 1968, in particular, was a year of significant unrest and transformation. As the world was shifting, so was the U.S. coinage system. The 1968 penny was part of the well-known Lincoln Memorial Series, which ran from 1959 to 2008. The 1968 penny marked a key period as it was made during a time when the U.S. Mint was in full swing producing millions of pennies. So, why is this particular 1968 penny so special? It all boils down to rarity, condition, and of course, the possibility of minting errors. While millions of these pennies were produced, finding a 1968 penny in pristine condition or with a rare minting error is what really catches the attention of collectors. The vast majority of 1968 pennies saw heavy circulation and, over time, were subject to wear and tear, losing much of their value. But if you manage to find one in great shape, it can be a real treasure point. One of the primary things that makes the 1968 penny interesting is its mint mark. There are three major U.S. mints: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. The 1968 penny can be found with either the D mint mark, for Denver, or without a mint mark, indicating it was struck in Philadelphia. There was also a small batch made in San Francisco, but these are rarer. The D mint mark pennies are more common, and so they tend to be less valuable than those without a mint mark. Collectors will sometimes pay a premium for a 1968 penny from Philadelphia, simply because they were produced in smaller quantities, but let's not forget the real game changer for coin collectors: the minting errors. These are the ultimate jackpot for anyone looking to score big. And while minting errors can happen at any time, the 1968 penny has some particularly interesting types of errors that can make it a highly coveted item. One of the most notable errors is the double die variety. This happens when the design on the die is struck twice, causing a doubling effect on the lettering or numbers. For the 1968 penny, you'll often see doubling on the Liberty and the "In God We Trust" inscriptions, which gives the coin a distinct appearance. Finding a 1968 penny with this double die error is not only incredibly rare but also incredibly valuable. Coins like these can sell for significant amounts, far above the standard value of a regular 1968 penny. Another error worth mentioning is the off-center strike. This occurs when the coin is not properly aligned during the minting process. The result is a coin that looks distorted, with part of the design missing or misaligned. While an off-center strike can happen with any coin, they are relatively rare, especially with the 1968 penny. If you stumble across a penny with this kind of flaw, you might just be holding onto something very special. Then we have the repunched mint mark error. Sometimes, when a mint mark is added to a coin, it can be struck multiple times, creating a blurry or double mint mark. This error adds to the uniqueness of the coin and can make it even more valuable to collectors who are keen on finding such rarities. So, now that we've discussed the rarity, minting errors, and unique features, you're probably wondering just how much the 1968 penny can actually be worth. The value of this penny can vary greatly depending on its condition and whether it possesses any of the rare minting errors we've talked about. A 1968 penny in good condition can still have some value, but the real prize comes if you have a coin in mint or near mint condition or one with a significant minting error. For a 1968 penny with the double die error or off-center strike, you could be looking at a coin worth a lot more than just 1 cent. In fact, if you happen to have a well-preserved 1968 Lincoln penny, you could be sitting on a coin worth $43,000, yes, you heard me right, $43,000 for a single penny. Of course, not every 1968 penny is going to fetch that kind of money, but for the lucky collectors who find one with a minting error or in excellent condition, it can be a truly rewarding discovery. If you've got a 1968 penny lying around or even buried in your coin jar, it's definitely worth checking it out under a magnifying glass. Look for those minting errors, check the condition, and you might just find yourself holding onto a rare treasure that could make you a lot richer than you'd ever expected. Today, because we're diving deep into one of the most intriguing coins from the 1960s, the 1960 Lincoln penny. A coin that, on the surface, might look like any other penny you've seen, but believe me, there's more to it than meets the eye. If you're ready to find out how a 1960 penny could be hiding a potential fortune, then stick around, because by the end of this video, you might just want to check your coin collection. Let's set the stage a bit. The 1960 Lincoln penny came at a time when the United States was in the midst of significant political and social changes. The 1960s were a time of cultural revolution, and the coinage of this era reflects the shifting times. The Lincoln penny, with its famous image of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, has always been a staple in American currency, but what makes the 1960 penny special? First, let's talk about the mint mark. As you may know, the mint mark tells you where the coin was produced, and it can drastically affect the coin's value. In 1960, the U.S. Mint was producing pennies at multiple locations, so you could come across coins minted in Philadelphia, Denver, or San Francisco. If your 1960 Lincoln penny doesn't have a mint mark, it was likely produced in Philadelphia, which is the most common type. But, if you find a 1960D, minted in Denver, or a rare 1960 proof penny from San Francisco, that's where things start to get really interesting. Now, let's talk about the rarity of the 1960 penny. While millions of these coins were produced, what makes this particular year stand out in the world of coin collectors are the minting errors and slight variations that occurred during its production. That's right, not all 1960 pennies are created equal. Some contain striking errors that can significantly boost their value. One of the most exciting things about the 1960 penny is the double die variety. This is a term used to describe a coin that has been struck twice, causing the image or lettering to appear doubled. For the 1960 Lincoln penny, you can find examples where the phrase, "In God We Trust," or even "Liberty," is doubled. This kind of error is highly coveted among collectors, as it makes the coin look much different from a regular penny. If you've got one of these in your collection, you're holding something truly special. Another variation to look out for is the large date and small date difference. In 1960, there were two distinct styles of the 1960 date on the penny. Some pennies were struck with a large date, while others were struck with a small date. These variations occurred due to different die stamps being used at the mint. Collectors often search for these subtle differences, and the small date variety, in particular, is rarer and commands a premium price in the market, but the real goldmine of 1960 pennies lies in the error coins. The double die error and the small date variety are the two most valuable aspects to look for. If you're fortunate enough to have a 1960 penny with one of these rare characteristics, you could be holding a valuable piece of history that's worth far more than its original face value. So, let's break it down. A regular 1960 Lincoln penny in average condition isn't worth much more than a typical penny. But if you happen to have a well-preserved 1960 penny with high-grade condition or a double die error, the value starts to rise dramatically. Coins with these characteristics, especially those that have been kept in mint condition, can fetch impressive prices in the market, and for the truly rare ones, especially those with an extremely noticeable double die or small date error, collectors are willing to pay top dollar. That's right, there are coins that have sold for tens of thousands of dollars, and depending on the rarity of the error or condition of the coin, the price can soar. Here's where it gets even more exciting. If you have one of these coins, it could be worth up to $47,000. Yes, you heard that correctly. A single 1960 penny with the right error and in excellent condition can be worth $47,000 in today's market. I bet now you're looking at your coin jar a little differently, right? It's always good to take a second look at your pennies because, as we've learned today, sometimes these little copper coins are hiding big surprises. So, next time you're sifting through your pocket change or flipping through your coin collection, make sure to keep an eye out for that 1960 Lincoln penny. Remember, the key to unlocking its value lies in finding a double die error, a small date, or simply ensuring it's in mint condition. Who knows? You might just find yourself the proud owner of a rare coin worth $47,000. Today, we're diving into one of the most fascinating pennies you might never have thought twice about, the 1981 Lincoln penny. You see, this seemingly ordinary coin has some interesting twists up its sleeve. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll want to take a closer look at every 1981 penny you come across. You might just be holding a small fortune. Now, at first glance, a 1981 Lincoln penny might not seem like the kind of coin that would make a huge splash in the coin world. After all, it's not an ancient artifact, and it's certainly not one of those highly publicized rare coins. But what if I told you that this coin could be hiding something that could make it worth far more than its 1-cent face value? You'd probably be pretty intrigued, right? Well, let's dive in and uncover the story behind this coin, its rare features, and why it could be worth a lot more than you think. To start, let's take a look at the 1981 penny from a historical perspective. The year 1981 marked an important time in U.S. history. It was the dawn of the 1980s, and the economy was shifting as the country adjusted to new leadership and the end of the Carter administration. The Lincoln penny, which has been around for over a century, continued its long run with its iconic portrait of Abraham Lincoln on the front and the wheat stalks on the reverse side, a design that dates back to the 1930s. So, what's special about the 1981 penny? What many don't realize is that 1981 pennies were minted with subtle variations, and these variations are precisely what make them so interesting for collectors. While the 1981 penny isn't considered a rare coin in terms of production numbers, there are specific characteristics that can turn an otherwise unremarkable coin into something much more valuable. The mint marks, the small letter found on the coin, play a huge role in determining value, and this is where things start to get exciting. In 1981, pennies were struck at multiple U.S. mints, including Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. However, the most fascinating of these are the no mint mark pennies produced in Philadelphia. These are actually the more common ones, but they've become rarer due to condition and the rarity of finding one in mint state. It's also important to note that there are 1981 D pennies, minted in Denver, and those, too, can have varying degrees of value depending on their specific characteristics. Now, let's talk about something that might really catch your attention: minting errors. This is where it gets especially exciting for collectors. Over the years, some 1981 pennies have been discovered with significant errors. And as any coin collector will tell you, errors can be highly valuable. We're talking about things like misstrikes, off-center strikes, and die cracks. These errors, though often small and subtle, make the coin much rarer and far more desirable to collectors. Some of these error coins have become known as the Holy Grails of the 1981 penny series. One of the most sought-after varieties of the 1981 penny is the double die error. This happens when a coin is struck twice, causing the design, particularly the Liberty or the In God We Trust inscription, to appear doubled. These error coins are extremely rare, and when found in pristine condition, they can fetch a pretty penny, pun intended. If you manage to find a 1981 double die penny, it could potentially be worth thousands of dollars, far beyond what you'd expect from a simple 1-cent piece. Additionally, collectors also look for coins that are in exceptionally good condition. Since the 1981 penny was in circulation for years, most examples have suffered from wear and tear. If you happen to come across one that's uncirculated, meaning it still has sharp details, no wear, and a lustrous finish, the value of this coin goes up significantly. Coins that are in MS-65 or higher grade condition can often be sold for several $100s or more. So now that you have a deeper understanding of why the 1981 penny can be worth far more than just a single cent, let's talk about what it could be worth in today's market. In typical, circulated condition, you'll find that the 1981 penny isn't worth much beyond its face value. But when you add those minting errors, a rare mint mark, or exceptional condition, the price can climb. If you find one of these mint error pennies, or an uncirculated example, it could be worth $34,000. Yes, you heard that correctly, $34,000. it's amazing how something as simple as a 1981 penny could turn out to be such a valuable treasure. Who knew that a 1-cent coin could hold so much potential, right? So, take a look at your 1981 pennies. Look for those mint errors, the unique features, and coins in excellent condition. You never know, you might just be holding a piece of history that could make you a small fortune. Today, we're diving into a gem from the 1960s that might not immediately catch your eye, but trust me, it's hiding some valuable secrets. Yes, today, we're talking about the 1966 Lincoln penny. You might be thinking, a penny from 1966. How could that be worth anything special? Well, let me tell you, this unassuming little coin could be worth more than you ever imagined. Stick around until the end, because by the time we're done, you'll have a new perspective on this seemingly ordinary penny. The 1966 Lincoln penny is not the first coin that comes to mind when you think of valuable U.S. currency, but don't be fooled. There are some fascinating details about this coin that make it incredibly desirable for collectors. To understand why the 1966 penny is so sought after, we need to take a step back in time. In 1966, the U.S. was in the middle of a period of major social and economic change. The country was dealing with the aftermath of the 1960s civil rights movement, the space race was in full swing, and the Vietnam War was escalating. But while these larger historical events were taking place, something much smaller was also happening. A new generation of coins was being minted. The Lincoln penny, which had been in circulation since 1909, was still being produced with its classic design, featuring President Abraham Lincoln on the obverse and the famous wheat ears on the reverse. But 1966 marked the end of an era for the wheat reverse design. Starting in 1959, the U.S. Mint began producing coins with a new reverse design, the Lincoln Memorial, to commemorate the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. The 1966 penny was one of the last years to feature the wheat reverse, making it a historic piece for collectors. So, what's so special about the 1966 penny? Well, in terms of minting numbers, the 1966 penny was produced in large quantities. The Philadelphia Mint, Denver Mint, and San Francisco Mint all struck 1966 pennies. But here's where it gets interesting. Not all 1966 pennies are created equal, and that's what separates the common ones from the valuable ones. One of the most important things to look for when evaluating the 1966 Lincoln penny is its condition. As with any coin, the better the condition, the more valuable it is. Coins that are in mint state or uncirculated condition are far rarer and therefore much more valuable. In fact, it's incredibly rare to find a 1966 penny in perfect condition, especially considering that these coins have been circulating for decades. So, if you happen to come across one that looks nearly untouched, well, you may just have a small treasure in your hands, but condition alone isn't what makes the 1966 penny valuable. Some of these coins were struck with minting errors, and error coins can be worth an absolute fortune. Errors like off-center strikes, double-die varieties, or even repunched mint marks are highly prized by collectors. Imagine discovering a 1966 penny with an error that makes it one of a kind. Now, that's a coin that could make you a pretty penny. The double-die error is one of the most sought-after varieties among collectors. This occurs when the coin is struck more than once, and the design becomes slightly doubled or blurred. For the 1966 penny, this could affect key details, such as the date or the inscriptions like "Liberty" and "In God We Trust." These double-die pennies are rare, but when you find one, it's like striking gold. But the rarity of these minting errors is what truly elevates the coin's value. Coins like these are often discovered by careful collectors who know exactly what to look for. If you come across a 1966 penny with a double-die error or any other minting mistake, you could be sitting on a valuable piece of history. And even more common 1966 pennies that are in excellent condition still have some impressive worth. When you factor in the historical context of the 1966 penny, its place in the timeline of U.S. coinage, and the potential for error varieties, it becomes clear why collectors are eager to add these to their collections. It's not just a coin from the past, it's a piece of history. So, how much could a 1966 Lincoln penny be worth? It depends on its condition, rarity, and any errors it may contain. But when you find one that's in mint condition or has an error variety, you could be looking at a coin worth $45,500. Yes, you heard that right, $45,500. It's amazing to think that a simple penny could hold such value, but that's the beauty of the world of numismatics. Coins can be so much more than just currency. They're little time capsules that carry the history and stories of the past. If you've got a 1966 penny in your collection, take a moment to check for any unique features or errors. It might just be the lucky coin you've been waiting for. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed learning about the 1966 Lincoln penny, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more exciting videos on rare and valuable coins. Hit that notification bell so you never miss a new discovery. Happy collecting, and good luck on your next treasure hunt.